for a program that I've been planning for almost a year, I have to say. And it came to fruition, and it couldn't be more timely. In fact, this is the first program. Well, we've done other KH leadership program online during COVID. We've done Sanisa and Michael's here. We've done one on the arts, but this is really one of the first KH leadership program in person, and I wanted to get past alumni, well, not past alumni of the program, to talk about issues of the day, and so. I've been thinking about Adriel for this for a long time. And then about a month ago, he kind of got a promotion. So this is his first program, public program. I mean, there's been other programs. This is his first public program as the chairman of Hang Lung Group. And we're really delighted that he's here with us tonight to talk about sustainability. I think you've probably heard a lot about the company strategy, but we're going to hear directly from Adriel. And the idea for this KH Leadership Program is because it was 25 years ago in April that I graduated. I was the part of the KH1 cohort, and I just learned from Adriel, tomorrow night, you and your KH are celebrating your 10th anniversary. So there is a really interesting connection there. And we'll also talk about why he decided to do the program. I know why I did it, but and can I see a show of a hand how many KH in the audience, or Kellogg or HKUST? Oh, good. There's a good number.
Yeah, 9 or 10. That's good.
Good. Also, can I see a show of hand who are members of Asia Society Hong Kong? Ah, that's great. Please help us get more members, because we really, really need more of grow that Asia Society Hong Kong network. So thank you. But without further ado, you saw Adriel's bio, and so I'm not going to go into it. USC, now EMBA, Kellogg, and now chairman of Hang Lung Group. I'm very familiar with that title. But now, in your capacity, since April, what has changed? I got a title change. It's just a title change. But
President.
Well, it's from executive director after 12 years. But what has it feel like since becoming chairman or about a month ago?
So sorry, I'm going to correct you. Technically, I'm called the chair.
Chair.
I'm like a noun. I'm the chair, and we made this change. So chairman to chair a couple of years ago, just to keep up with the times. In reality, those of you who know me, I've been at the company for about 14 years now, and I know the company inside out. It's something I'm very familiar with. I've been involved in all the decision making all the way along, so when the topic came up of transition, it felt very familiar, very natural, and in reality, I think nothing is going to change, almost nothing. There's some reporting line adjustments, we've shuffled a few people around, but in reality, it's sort of slipping right into this next role, and I think that's only appropriate as well, considering I have been here for 12, 13 years, and if I were suddenly to make a big change, that would imply that I was not involved or not as empowered as perhaps I should have been as vice chair. And so, what we're seeing today, the Hang Lung, the company that we know, is really the fruits of Ronnie, the chair, the outgoing chair, and my combined labor.
Okay, just to clarify, in fact, we had some misunderstanding, and Virginia and I both got that. Once you became chair and Ronnie became honorary chair, somebody asked me, is my new boss Adriel? And I had to clarify, Ronnie is still chairman of Asia Society Hong Kong. That has not changed. And that will not likely to change, but I just want to clarify in the audience that he has a cubicle here, and Ronnie is still our chairman, and we're delighted. But you've also been a member. We're very grateful that Hang Lung has been a corporate member and been very supportive of our effort. So with that clarification, I just kind of want to now delve into what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about a lot of some of your plans, Hang Lung's sustainability strategy. I know many of you here are interested to hear about that, but also I want to spend some time talking to you about personal, just kind of getting to know Adriel. I kind of I've known you for a few decades, so but those of you in the audience may not. And so let's start off with the Hang Long's sustainability strategy. As you said, you have been involved with a lot of the work from and in fact you were also the chair of the sustainability steering committee at Hang Lung. So, what is your vision? I mean, you're the third generation of the family heading the company, and your thoughts about the company's sustainability over the year. When did you start thinking about it?
So we initiated our sustainability program in 2012. That's actually the year that I came back to Hong Kong. I joined in 2010 in Shanghai, and then I came back in 2012. And one of the first things that I did was say, hey, we need to have a sustainability strategy. We have to issue sustainability reports. We have to start getting the word out there, at least start exercising that muscle. So that first year, we came out with a relatively simple sustainability report. And every year, it's been getting thicker and better with more information and more aligned with the global reporting, which is, as many of you know, constantly changing. So that was it took place immediately after I returned to Hong Kong, and it's something that's been close to my heart since I was young and up until now. So because it's something that's close to my heart and that I truly believe is the right thing to do, I felt like Hang Lung really had to play a leadership role, at least in our industry, if not in the whole Hong Kong market for sustainability. And I think that over the past 12 years, we've more or less achieved that. I like to think that we've are now considered up there with Swire, who probably are considered the gold standard here in Hong Kong for sustainability. And in fact, when I talk to people in the industry, they say that Swire is kind of looking at us and kind of shaking a little bit in their boots, not put it a little bit exaggeratedly, but we're definitely pushing them to do more, and they're pushing us to do more. And so net, I think that's actually good for everyone when you have this type of competition inter-company or between groups. So sustainability is something that we hope to continue. It's one of our core values. So one of the other things that I did after joining was realigned our core values. So we've always had this sort of, what are the Hang Lung values? They used to be, actually I won't say what the old ones were, they're kind of lame sounding, but the new ones are integrity, because everything has to start with integrity, sustainability, openness, and excellence. And these are not typically what you see when you look at company core values, especially not openness and excellence. Sustainability and integrity you might see more often. But we really looked at our organization. We looked at the family values, the corporate values, looked at good governance and sort of best in class, and figured out what we were going to do. And sustainability had to be part of that.
Yeah, I think in your interview, I saw with a CNBC interview that you had a couple of weeks ago, shortly after you became chair. You talk about values, and can you kind of talk about more about that? I mean, you already kind of touched upon it, and the company value and the family value, and it's not just Hang Lung, but I know Annie Chan, your cousin, has been very much strolling in the family. It's been very much involved in impact investing. So talk a bit about values in that kind of.
That's tough because everyone gets their values from somewhere. Oftentimes it's your parents or it's who you grew up with, and it's more and more difficult to change as you get older. And I think the same goes for a corporation. As you get stuck in your ways, it becomes harder and harder to absorb or shift your values. In our case, it really comes from the founder, which is my grandfather, who was, some of you may not fully be on board, but he was a very strong Christian. Those of you who know Ronnie, my father, are now honorary chair, and know that he's also a very strong Christian, and so am I. And so this is sort of some of the origin of some of the values, making sure that you're a good corporate citizen and making sure that you're doing what's right for not just the shareholders and the company, but also for the communities that you serve. And so I think that's where it sort of originates. And then you echoed something I said, value of values. I don't know how I came up with that one, but on the CNBC interview, the question was, what's the most important thing that I've learned from Ronnie, our honorary chair? And I think I said that was the value of values. That is to say how important it is to recognize and to make sure that you have those right values as a corporation or as a corporate citizen.
Well, I think when you mentioned that, it really touched a core with me, and that those of you who know, we have a wonderful exhibition in there, Wilfredo Lam exhibition, which is closing on Sunday, by the way. So check it out before it goes. Because at the opening of the Wilfredo Lam show, I pay homage to our fathers. It's our fathers' journeys which brought us here, and because of the exhibition with working with Esquil and Stefan Lam, the son of Wilfredo, and it was around the third anniversary of my own father's passing, and so I've been thinking about it. The only thing he left me is values, because without his journey, without his, that's all I have of him, and which is because he's gone, it's more important. So when you said that, I thought it touched a core, and I think in some ways it's kind of undervalued, for whatever reason. Everybody's, because when you're looking at companies, you're looking at P&Ls, you're looking at quarterly results and everything. But in some ways, what you've touched upon, it kind of has allowed the company to sustain. I mean,
Yeah.
this is third generation. You mentioned another interesting fact was 41.
Yeah.
Your grandfather founded the company. Ronnie became chair of 41, and then you now are taking over 41.
I'm
So
still
again,
41 for a few more months.
okay. So, but that's very kind of like there is that continuity. So sustainability for this, because often they talk about companies, family company doesn't last beyond third generation. So I'm sure you're going to do very well to uphold the company in the years to come.
Just maybe can I just respond really quickly to the values? I definitely feel like it is underappreciated. Most investors, and I'm sure some of you in the audience are investors, don't know how to quantify or how to measure the values in a company. Of course, things like governance are a proxy for values. And so do you have diversity? Diversity in gender or diversity in race is actually just a proxy for a diversity of thought. And you need to make sure that the board and management have a diversity of thought. Just like what's a proxy for values? Broadly speaking, it's sort of good governance. It's, are you giving back to society? Are you doing sustainability? Are you taking things seriously? Or how do you treat your employees? And there are metrics for that, but it's very hard to quantify. So I know investors oftentimes undervalue it. And if you look at what is driving share price and therefore CEO pay or chairman pay, chair pay, it's things like share price and profitability, and those things don't always capture values. And so to recognize, first of all, that having the right values is valuable, I think is really the basis. And if you don't understand that values and the values that your company espouses and lives are important, then you're already sort of missing the point to begin with. The question really is, how do you bring the value systems of a company to bear on something that investors and people who otherwise are stakeholders of the company can measure and can touch and feel?
Great. So you mentioned, other, companies that are really, you mentioned Swire, but if you were talking to, new business, people want to kind of follow in your footstep. I mean, in terms of drive to sustainability and all of that, what's kind of your advice to companies or people, entrepreneur, kind of new business model or partnership model that you think will be should be explored to drive sustainability in the real estate industry or in other sectors?
So one thing that I always say is, you can have no environmental or social sustainability if you don't have financial sustainability. Meaning, if you're no longer a going concern, if your company goes bust, then you can't even do anything about society or the environment. So first of all, you actually have to make sure that you're a viable company, and that's the sort of the first order of sustainability. Rather than talking about business models, which I think are, everyone's going to find their niche. I think it's more, to me, how do you look at structuring the company and your governance to ensure that sustainability is sort of built in, and sort of by definition, it kind of has to come from the top, because at the end of the day, the tone, the direction, the strategy, the hiring is all driven from the top. And so to me, what that implies is actually governance is one of the most undervalued ESG, they talk about ESG, right? The G in governance is, I think, by far the most underappreciated or misunderstood, and perhaps the most important, because if you don't get the structure and the people right from the governance perspective, you can't even effectively do environmental or social.
Well, you touch upon a very interesting point about ESG. Yesterday here, we hosted CEBS, CE,
China European International Business School.
They had a conference here yesterday about ESG in the Greater Bay Area, and Hong Kong can be kind of the driver to help ESG in the GBA, and that's a hot topic. China is very interested, and you were recently in Europe. I understand you went on a Better Hong Kong Foundation. You were in Paris and Berlin. And you have traveled quite a bit. So what do you see are the differences in terms of approach of sustainability between China and Europe?
I think the most refreshing thing, okay, actually, let me backtrack. Europeans, as broadly as people, individuals, you run into them on the street, almost everybody is pretty well versed in sustainability. What does it mean to be environmentally friendly? What are you doing as a responsible global citizen? And, everybody knows it and talks about it. And at least when you talk to them, they know what sort of is the quote unquote right thing to do and say. And it's very natural. In China, it's very funny. You talk to people in the street and they're like, oh yeah, of course, if I have the option to use less plastic or more plastic, I'll use less because it's cheaper. Right? They don't have this concept of waste or the environmental impact so much as Europeans do. So in China, yet you see this environmental push, which is so strong. The government's doing it, corporations are doing it, communities are doing it. But if the individuals that you talk to on the street don't even feel as strongly or are not as sophisticated when it comes to sustainability, then how is it happening? And again, it comes from the top. The government is pushing so hard. As a corporation, I have targets. My city has targets, which push the targets down to the districts, and then the districts push it down to what they call the jiedao, like the streets. And then everyone has their KPIs, and it's pushed really very much from the top. And that's an example of where you can get a lot done by having a structure which is a bit more top-heavy. And in Europe, it's very much more grassroots, which has its own strengths, but also its own weaknesses. So I was on a panel, I moderated a panel with Zhu Ming and another lady by the name of Susan Zhu, who's a carbon trader in China, actually the first, so early that she has to build the infrastructure around carbon trading in China. It's fascinating. But I did a poll in this room in Europe, in Germany, in Berlin, mostly young people. I would say the average age of the room was maybe 40 or so. So it's a pretty young group. And I said, who here would rather decarbonize faster but use cheap Chinese solar panels? And who would rather decarbonize slower but protect your own industry and have German-made solar panels? And it was very clear. I mean, everybody there, these young people, put their hand up to vote for a faster decarbonization basically at the expense of their own economy. That is facetious, but kind of in a way that's how I phrased the question. And it was unequivocal that they wanted to decarbonize faster. But you could argue that maybe they weren't fully informed on the knock-on effects on the economy and what that would do politically. But you also understand now why the Greens are so important, for example, in Germany. And so there's a very big difference, sort of, in which direction sustainability is being pushed from between China and Europe.
Well, I think you touched on an interesting point. Right now we're talking about trade wars, right? And the EV debate, right? Right now, the EV is not even being exported to Europe, but they're already talking about limiting it. And last year, I remember meeting a European who's from Salzburg who had never been to China and he was on a music tour, and I asked him what he thought of Shanghai, and thinking that he was going to tell me, about the building and so on. And he said, Shanghai is so quiet. And I said,
you mean when he had visited Shanghai for the first time?
Yes.
Okay.
Visiting China for the first time, Shanghai for the first time. And I, asked him his opinion, and he said, it's quiet. And I said, well, what do you mean quiet? I haven't been to Shanghai in a couple of years because of COVID. And he said, yeah, there was a lot of the cars. It's, and he was really, surprised, pleasantly surprised, and how clean and quiet Shanghai was. And I haven't been. I'm looking forward. I know you go all the time. So is that the case? I mean, you're definitely seeing a lot more
You have to
EVs.
come back to Shanghai more often.
I'm hoping
I mean,
invite
Shanghai,
me. I'm gonna go.
it's so fantastic. I mean, yeah, it's super clean and the streets are super quiet. So it's funny because it's quite polar because you have a very big group of wealthy people there. So you have most cars are super silent EVs, and then you have the occasional Ferrari, Lamborghini, kind of like roaring down the street. Porsche, I have to give Jebsen a plug because I know they do a lot of the Porsches in China. I mean, it's very polarized. You have one end and the other. But again, I mean, all of this, I think, really has so much credit has to go back to the government for pushing these types of for driving these types of initiatives, which encourage EV adoption and which really make it a much more livable place. So Shanghai is fantastic. I have so much fun every time I go back. My wife and I.
Well, I understand you were there recently, and I think you have some interesting hobbies that I wanted to kind of delve into. You were there to see the Olympic finals and
Qualifiers.
qualifiers. Tell me what sport was it?
So I've been skateboarding since I was like 14, which is actually a very late age. If anyone here skateboards or if your kids skateboard, they should start earlier. But and I've just kept it up. So I'm now 40, turning 42 this year. So it's like 18 years of skateboarding. Of course, in the middle, kind of on and off. But the Olympic qualifier finals were being held in Shanghai, and there was just so many people from all over the world, and it's so exciting. One of the reasons why I love Shanghai and I love going back is because I always skateboard when I'm there, because the skateboarding there is much better than it is here in Hong Kong. And it's really just, at the end of the day, it's a space thing, and a space and the size of the community.
Well, I think when I met you, I think it was around that age. I remember your skateboarding escapades, but I'm surprised you're continuing. I mean, is the board gonna? I mean, you're now an adult, so and it's not, but I guess not. I think some skateboarders are going on till they're. Is it
Yeah.
Tony Hawk's?
Tony Hawk's in his 50s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did not know who Tony Hawk was until watching a documentary on the flights, and I was like, oh my God, he's at his age, he's still.
In Hong Kong, some of the older groups, the first group of skateboarders who are still skateboarding, are into their early 50s. Two of my friends, one is about to turn 50, and one I think just turned 52 or 53, and they're still going strong. Actually, they're still better than I am, so I need to catch up.
So you're going to continue?
I have to continue,
Oh,
at least
okay.
until the knees give out or whatever. But people are doing it well into the 50s, so I think we'll be okay.
Well, are you going to Paris to see the?
No, unfortunately, I won't be able to make it back this summer. I have other travel plans, but Paris is fantastic. One thing, so I spend a fair bit of time in Paris. One of the reasons is because my biggest partner, LVMH, are in Paris. And LVMH, probably there's a lot of LVMH in this room right now, which is Louis Vuitton, which is Dior, Loewe, Tiffany's. So all of these brands are owned by LVMH. They have a huge sustainability program. And one thing that I personally am really proud of, and so that's why I'm actively just going to say it here. 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, Antoine Arnault, who is the eldest son of Bernard Arnault, and I signed an agreement in Paris to cooperate on sustainability. And that was, I mean, all of you are either in big corporates or you invest in big corporates or you're big corporate adjacent. You know that it's very difficult to get things done, even between departments within a corporation or even within the same department. It's hard to get your colleague to take on work or to do something. So LVMH and Hang Lung signed an agreement to jointly cooperate on sustainability, but this is not just saying we're going to do A, B, C, and D. We have targets that they have committed to and that we've committed to over a 3-year period, which each of us can audit one another on. So I actually get to look at their books, they look at my books. It's not just honor-based. And not only do we get to look at each other's books and check whether or not they're being honest and actually meeting their commitments, we have penalties. And so if they don't reduce the electricity consumption in their stores, in my malls, so I have the shopping mall, they have the store inside the shopping mall, and then we check their electricity and water consumption. If they're not reducing that to a certain level that they committed to, then we have the right to fine them. Of course, we're not charging more rent, we're not taking the penalty ourselves, but they have to make a donation to a nonprofit of our choosing. So let's just say that we've come up to the first audit and their numbers are not looking particularly good. And I got a phone call, basically, please, as much as possible, keep this to this room. Yeah, they're asking for a little bit of clemency, my view is that we're partners. Of course, I can be flexible, but this is the rule of the game that we set. There has to be a penalty. So we're gonna milk them for a little bit for one of the nonprofits that we support in Shanghai.
Well, too bad. I was hoping a nonprofit in Hong Kong.
Called Asia Society.
I would volunteer to be that nonprofit for you. Twist my arm.
Hey, let me see what we can do.
Yeah, we're here. And no, we're very
And you
grateful.
could put the LVMH logo up on your donors list.
Well, happy to do that because they have worked with us before on rentals, and we are, thanks to Hang Lung and of course Ronnie and many of you here. Without the support, we wouldn't be where we are today. So all the nonprofits, and especially because of COVID this last 3 years, we are all in dire need of help. So I'm saying the word out there. You guys being here has helped us a lot, and I have a board meeting coming up in a few weeks.
Those of you who are not yet members or corporate members, time to sign up.
Please, because it is really important. And this is one of the, going back to sustainability, this is one of the reasons I agree 12 years ago, because I was looking to change careers. I did not want to do nonprofit anymore. It's a lot of hard work. After, we'll talk about the nonprofit, how you were my intern when I was working in New York, starting my nonprofit career in Committee of 100. It's hard work. And the reason I decided that Asia Society Hong Kong was for me, it was that we could make a difference, and I think we have this last 12 years. And I'm very passionate about our mission, and really thankful to all of the and going back to Ronnie and the board believes that an organization, a nonprofit like us, needs to sustain itself. It can't be just Ronnie writing the checks, and he doesn't. And he does give us a loan, but he's not right. But we need membership. If you look at organization, a lot of NGOs, nonprofit in the U.S. and Europe, more U.S. and Europe. I think the government sometimes are helping, but in the U.S., NGOs, in order to sustain itself, has to broaden its base. Members, it has to have corporate members, it has to have individual supporter. So when I ask you whether you're a member or not, it's because we have to sustain itself. Because Ronnie's not always going to be there, Hang Lung's not always going to be there. We have to broaden our support. So that's what I
mean, like you said about impact, as a corporation, when I measure my own impact, obviously one of the factors is financial impact. Are we paying our shareholders? Are we paying good salaries? Do we have retained profits? But when we look at our ESG programs, the question is, where is the impact? Are these programs that you're doing having impact? And so everything that you kind of look at from a corporate lens, from a nonprofit lens, from a personal lens, I think those of us in the room are probably lucky enough to be able to consider impact beyond sort of just one smaller individual circles. And I think the impact that Asia Society has had on the Hong Kong nonprofit scene, art scene, I mean, it's huge. Back in 2012 when the center opened, I remember the opening, there was nothing in Hong Kong even close. This sort of really put Hong Kong on the map. This is before West Kowloon, before Art Basel. Art Basel was here, was starting to come.
It was that year, but it was not
But it
until
wasn't
May.
as big.
It was small.
It didn't have the impact. But Asia Society has a home here. They do over 200 programs a year. I mean, it's really one of the pillars of Hong Kong society, and that's why we support it. That's why I'm here tonight.
Thank you. I didn't tell him to do that. Thank you. I really appreciate that. But now I want to kind of now turn to talk about more of the personal, and also many of us in this room. I mean, we did the program. We did the Kellogg-HKUST program. I was the first class. I mentioned 25 years ago in April, I graduated, and your grandmother was at the graduation. So I'm very thankful for the. The idea was that they pay for the family pay for my tuition, and the tuition was high. I couldn't afford it, but then that I had to stay on to work for the company for for 2 years, and I ended up staying for 3 years. So I'm very grateful for the financial support for me to get the EMBA. And we were the guinea pig class. We program started in 98, 99. I know why I did it, because I wanted an American MBA, because as Chinese American, Kellogg was my number one choice from when I was in Ohio, and to be able to do it when I did it in 98, 99, I was very grateful for that. So why did you do it? Because you did it, you were KH16, and you did it, yeah. And what was your reason for doing the program?
So I studied international relations for my undergraduate, which, suffice to say, doesn't get you far in the corporate world.
I study international relations too. So.
Yeah, or maybe it gets you really far. I mean, who knows? But so when I came back to Asia, first in Shanghai and then later into Hong Kong, I realized that I was very ill-equipped sort of to take on corporate life. Of course, in Shanghai, I started off with KPMG, which is an excellent training. I think accountancy is a really, really good base, and I love that what they've done, what they did for me. But I'd never studied finance, I'd never studied marketing, I'd never studied statistics, and because international relations doesn't teach you these things. And so to me, I was looking at programs saying, which one has actually the strongest academics, and KH was, I think, sort of by far. I mean, unless I was going to go to Chicago, and I'm not that nerdy, nor do I aspire to be that nerdy. So I said, it has to be KH. It's known for marketing. I'm in a consumer-related business, and that was really what made sense for me. And it's the academics for me. That being said, when I went in, they worked us like dogs. I think my year had it the worst. We had really, really tough projects. I hear it's because KH15, the year before me, partied a little bit too much. So if there's anyone in KH15 here, thank you for making my life really tough for a year and a half. No, but it had really solid academics. The network was second to none. I mean, being here in Hong Kong and attracting people from all over the world. One of my group mates is at an ambassadorial level in the Australian government. And she was there on a free ride because they give out scholarships to really high power and high impact people who can afford it. So that was really what I came away with, which is such a strong network plus the hard skills that I felt like I was lacking.
Well, I have to say, I think without that, same with you. I was also international studies relations major, and having that breadth, and now I feel like I can run this organization because of the marketing skills and the finance and all of that. I think without it, I wouldn't be where I am or today. So I'm really grateful for that. But I don't know if you remember when you worked at Committee 100. That was when the ranking came out. I think that was a year. It was 2006. And I think, I think the Financial Times ranking that year was the first time KH became number one. And I remember I subscribed to Financial Times, the newspaper, and I was reading it, and it was like, wait, the program that I did a few years ago is now number one. And I think I might have, because you were from Hong Kong.
I was there at the time. I remember you walking out of your office, like holding the newspaper, like we're number one. Yeah, I actually remember that scene.
Okay, so that hopefully has an impact on you too, because I tell that story and I'm like, all right, you just validated it, because this was in New York, and the program was number one, and I was really pleasantly surprised, and it's great to see the program going from strength to strength, and many of you here tonight are kind of attest to that. But in terms of let's talk about kind of your personal, now that you're chair and you have what do you plan on doing in terms of your short-term and long-term goals? I mean, I know you've talked about sustainability, but what else would you like to see the company? I know you also accomplished a really great task. You remodeled that office after because I've been in that building. I've worked in that building since '95. And it's been always like that. And because the Hang Lung moved in there in '94? 93, 94, shortly after I think Ronnie bought it from Standard Charter. So it's been like that since '93. And so you
We did a big
transformed it.
remodel.
Yeah, so tell
It's
us
much
about
more
that.
sustainable, a lot more natural. But maybe I'll start with I think the bigger question, which is what's the intention, what's the plan, what's the new game plan for Hanglong now that I've just taken over. And I think I alluded to it earlier. It's mostly going to be steady as she goes. That being said, you have to be reactive to the environment, and right now the environment outside is very strange. So because it's so strange, I think we're going to be a little bit more conservative. What we've been known for is building these huge greenfield shopping malls, luxury malls in mainland China, in new cities, in second and third tier cities. That's done very well for us. It's been a strategy that worked over the sort of 20 some years that we've been executing it. Sorry, no. We bought the first plot in '92, and then it is now 2024, so 30 years that we've been executing it. But I think that there has to be a shift in response to the broader context, which is higher interest rates, which is uncertainty in the real estate market in China, which is shifting consumer habits. And the question is, how do you attack all of these? And the MBA or EMBA is a great way for you to go through case studies and see what other people have done in similar situations. Of course, it never fully translates, but I think the real question is how do you look at that question? So we have to pivot on a few things. I think we have to become much more customer centric. We used to be simply a landlord where we just we were a big box and we'd carve it up, stick in some lighting, stick in some air conditioning, and you just rent it. You say, okay, this is I don't know, call it $10 a foot a month, or $20, right? And it's not about that anymore. Now you have to really engage with the customers who walk through the mall. Everyone knows about facial recognition, about big data, and how are you actually understanding your consumers, their behaviors? What are you doing to capture their information, obviously with their consent? And how do you use that to empower your tenants? So it's really gone from a B2B model to a B2B2C model. And so it's so important, especially because we play in the high end, that we have a strong relationship with the end consumer. So one thing, that's something that actually also started in around 2013. We actually brought on a consultant to help us think about how we should engage with consumers more and how we should sort of digitalize more. And those two things really converged into our CRM program, customer relationship management. And that's not something that people normally thought about malls as doing. Of course, nowadays everybody has, if you go to K11, you have K dollars. If you go to Sun Hung Kai, you have actually I don't know what theirs are called, Sun Hung Kai dollars. And then we have Hello points. HL, hello, is like Hanglong. And that's all CRM. And so basically, you spend a little bit on marketing to get more data from your consumers because they're willing to give you their data in exchange for points or for dollars. And that's really driven the closeness that we now enjoy with the end consumer that we didn't used to enjoy. And because of that, we know our consumers much better. We can say, oh, we know that Mr. Port likes to buy Louis Vuitton, but he doesn't buy Dior. And so that's a way for us with his consent to say, oh, you know what, Dior is actually in these ways complementary to Louis Vuitton. You should kind of look at them, maybe attend some of their events. And there's this opportunity to cross-sell, which wasn't there before. And I think that if we can unlock all of that value, that would be huge. And we're so early in that journey. We've just started doing that. I think all developers are very early in that, but there's so much room to improve and so much value to unlock that I think that we'll be working at that for probably several decades. At the same time, everyone talks about the mall of the future. What's going to be a better mall that is going to put me out of business? And actually, I don't really benchmark myself against malls. I benchmark myself against what I see my competition as, which is amusement parks. Because if you're coming to a Hanglong mall, your alternative is to go to Disney, right? You don't have to go to a mall. Or my alternative, obviously, is e-commerce, because instead of shopping in mall, you can shop online now. Or even further afield, which I think is even more scary, is gaming, mobile gaming, video games, computer games, because rather than going to the mall with your friends these days, young people would rather jump on a server and play video games with one another. And that is the new form of socialization. So if people aren't coming to malls anymore, what is my relevance? So that's sort of one of the things, for example, the MBA program helped me start to look at my corporate issues in this different angle.
So I think you touched upon something that I find interesting because last weekend I spent some time in Shenzhen, 5 hours at a particular spa, and it's like time. You know, money is unlimited, right? You can print money, a lot of company, but time is limited. So what is people willing to spend time, limit time on? You talk about malls. You talk. I mean, you used to go to the movies, but now you can watch Netflix, everything at home. But people still, when we do film programs, people still come and they want the post. So it's experiences. So I guess one of the things, whenever I'm traveling is I love going to museums, right? So what is museums or these arts institution? How are you going to make it interesting for people to spend time? Limited time and maybe during that time spending money. So you guys are, I mean, and one of the things we used to talk about a lot when we get together was always about F&B, who are some of your new tenants, or what restaurants should we try and all that. So I mean, and here I have to say I haven't been to the Hong Long properties in a long time. I think the only one I've been spend more time with was in Shanghai. But not even the stuff that you guys are doing in Shenyang, Wuhan, and all of that. But here in Hong Kong, you guys are well known for Causeway Bay,
Yeah, Fashion Walk,
and
Peak
also
Galleria.
the Peak. Is it? I mean,
Mong
talk
Kong.
about that kind of experience. How are you going to transform those spaces? And people rave. I don't have any pets, but people rave about the Galleria, the pet.
We're
park.
pet friendly.
Okay, so talk about experiences. I mean, what are you trying to do here, or kind of learning from the experiences here to expand?
So, in a way, my secret weapon is being an Asia Society member, because I get to experience all the events that Asia Society puts on, and in a way, I'm competing with Asia Society. So I'm also kind of like a mole, because why should somebody come to my mall if there's an amazing Asia Society program going on, right? You have family-friendly ones. You have do you have pet-friendly events? I don't think so.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not
so,
yet.
Yeah, so I still have an advantage over you on that.
Right.
But that's exactly the point. I mean, if there's nothing going on in a mall, if it's not activated, if there's not some kind of exhibit, or if it's not pet friendly, or if you don't have a children's event going on, then why should they come to the mall? And so that's something that we looked at all of our properties. That's a lens through which we looked at all of our properties. And at the Peak, it was naturally pets, because people walk their dogs on the Peak. They like to do the morning trail. They like to do, weekdays, weekends, evenings. And so that really became, okay, well, that's sort of where all the circles overlap. What can we do with pets? And so we turned that into a pet-friendly mall, the first time that we've done that on a large scale. And it's received, I think, very good reviews. That being said, the key is to find ways to monetize. And again, that comes back to the EMBA. You're supposed to learn how to monetize things like that. And we're still sort of working through how best to monetize. But each property has its own sets of strengths and weaknesses. In Fashion Walk, in Causeway Bay, we have high street retail, which is relatively rare in Hong Kong to have a set of streets which are kind of well curated, clean, enjoyable, a mix of F&B experiences. We have like a vinyl bar there, Mercury Recalls, which I think is super cool. I walked in the other day, and they just have a vinyl spinning, and it's
you collect vinyls, as I recall.
I have a few. I don't quite collect. I like to listen to vinyl music, and that's just something different. From the outside, it's just music playing, and you wouldn't honestly know. I guarantee you, nobody, not the best audiophile, could tell you that was a vinyl. But you kind of peek inside, and it was a bright pink vinyl spinning on the turntable, and you're like, wait a minute, what's that? And suddenly it just makes it so much more interesting, and you want to go in and you want to spend time and you want to engage. So every time you have properties, you have a space, you need to activate that space, just like Asia Society has to fill your spaces with activities and speakers and exhibitions.
We did have a very successful partnership. I don't know if you remember this. I think Virginia might remember. A couple of years ago, we had the Yoshitomo Nara exhibition here. It was his first major exhibition outside of Japan, and he chose to do it here. And we did a kind of we had some stalls at in festival in Causeway Bay, and that was kind of fun. But I always thought we could do more, collaborating, because it doesn't always have to be Asia Society. We do family program, and now we work with some of the companies who do family program at their premise. So I always felt like we could collaborate. And I have a crazy idea that I think I mentioned it to you before. And you remember last weekend, I understand Doraemon was a big deal. Remember the thing over
The
at
drone show.
the drone show, and also the upcoming exhibition by over by K11. I have, and I did not know this, but I found that out. I think maybe Ronnie or somebody told me that Hang Lung was one of the first companies to bring Hello Kitty to Hong Kong in the 70s. Have you found stuff in your? I always want to go into the archive of Hang Lung because I've seen a Hello Kitty show actually when I was in LA a couple of years ago. Very well curated, and I've always been curious, like, why are these figures, so, especially with connection,
So attractive.
so
Drawing people's-
attractive?
Yeah.
I think people collectibles, whether it's Nara's dogs or Nara's, or Murakami, and now so I've and knowing that, Hang Lung, you guys have partner with many of the Japanese department store and brands. Your grandfather did in when the company started. So, I still would like to see the Hello Kitty show. I'm sure many of you think it's with your kids or your family may be interested. But tell me more about some of those collaborations.
So things like Sanrio, who is the IP owner of Hello Kitty. I mean, so my grandfather brought them into Hong Kong back in the 70s, and that was the introduction to Hong Kong for Hello Kitty. But of course, that's sort of lost on everyone. Actually, the best archives are in my grandmother's house, my late grandfather's house, which sometimes you're kind of digging through looking for something, and suddenly you come across like an unopened box, and there's paraphernalia like old Hello Kitty stuff, right? Or it's like, whoa, what? And before I knew that my grandfather brought Hello Kitty to Hong Kong, I was surprised. Why on earth is there Hello Kitty in this house? Because my brother and I, there's only boys in this family. So that's a big part of activities in the retail context. How do you work with what the people like to call IP these days, intellectual property, which is so things like Doraemon or Hello Kitty or Avengers or Marvel, right? They all have what they're selling IP, which is basically the entertainment value of a fictional character that they've produced or a fictional idea that they produced, and it's great because people have put so much time and energy into creating these universes, and that the creators can finally monetize. Hopefully, not too much gets lost in the chain of distributors and a la Taylor Swift. But there's so many options now for creators to monetize. I think that's really powerful. One of them is shopping malls. One of them are people like Asia Society. So that's really the main way that we sort of interact with IP these days as a draw for our activities.
Well, on that note, we have 10 minutes left, and I'm going to open up Q&A, and feel free to raise your hand and ask your question. Juan?
Okay, don't give me the microphone because you need to answer the questions.
This way she has to answer.
Okay. You were talking about sustainability and the example with the Louis Vuitton, but you didn't give us any number. So it sounds to me like you are marketing and not getting into something real. So I am KH as well, so I'm trying to dig a little bit more on that. And you didn't say as well if they audit your group either, and if you fail or not.
Fundamentally, the nature of our businesses are slightly different, so the targets are a little bit different. But let's just say that we're on track. So what we said by 2018, we have to reduce our energy consumption, I think it's by 30% in public areas. And that is in line with our own internal strategy to get to net zero by 2050. So we've set milestones that we have to hit 30% reduction by 2018, and then however much by 2050, and then however much by 2060. 2030, and then 2035, and then 2050. So we're sort of on track to our 30%. Actually, I have to admit, LVMH's targets were even more aggressive. And that shows their commitment to sustainability, but at the same time, it also shows that they're not quite fully, integrated with everybody having that same sense of urgency. I can't say exactly how much because I think they want to keep this information private, but let's just say that their goal for many of the stores is actually to cut the electricity consumption by half. They have watt-hour per square meter per year target. And that some of them are very aggressive. I mean, if you've walked into a luxury brand store, it's super bright. Part of the reason is because scientifically speaking, like research shows that in a bright environment, people feel better and they're more predisposed to buy. So the question is, how can they sort of reduce their energy costs and consumption significantly and still keep that willingness for the consumers to buy? So I can't go into the details, but basically that's sort of where we were. Albert?
Yes, I'm from Hong Kong USD, although I was a banker. My question is probably more bank related. I think Adriel talked about governance, but maintaining financial sustainability is important. Do you feel banks understand sustainability and pay value to companies which are more sustainable? I have seen green finance deals being done, and banks always say to do that, which costs the corporation money for the long term, they reduce the pricing by half a basis point. And how do we convince the banks to say Hang Lung is much more risk-free? Because in the last 18 months, it's difficult to get bank financing. Probably not Hang Lung, but how did you rationalize that? Thank you.
So we're now over 50% green financed. So if over 50% of our borrowing is green. The real question is, how does one know? Anyone, a bank, an investor, your shopper, how do they know that you're really green? And that comes back to standards, which we didn't talk about today. It's a huge spaghetti of standards and governing bodies and alliances and commitments. So that is actually being worked out as we speak. Everybody realizes, anyone who's in a corporation realizes that there's so many different competing standards on sustainability. The banks oftentimes have their own each. So in order to qualify for a Bank of America loan, then I need to qualify to their standards. But their standards might be different from my reporting standards here in Hong Kong, which are then again different from the standards in mainland China. And so actually the biggest issue is around standards and verification. So the whole market is really working a lot around this. But I think what's going to happen in the future is, they're talking about basically a bonus. It starts as a carrot and ends up as a stick. So at first they'll offer you half a bip reduction in the interest rate. But in the future, you won't be able to get a loan unless your projects are green. And so that's sort of the way that we see it. And that's not what drives us, but I think that's probably the trajectory.
Okay, Janana, and then Nicholas.
Thank you. Hi, Adriel. First of all, I want to say you're very nice because you always put a like to my comments on your very interesting Instagram page, even though you don't know me personally. And because I like you already, I'm going to say your math is not as good. You said you started skating at 14. You're 42. You said I've been doing this for 18 years. You've been doing this for 22 years. That's all I wanted to say.
I'm trying to feel younger. Thank you for reminding me that, my knees are starting to give.
All right, Nicholas.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. Thank you.
Hi, I wanted to dig in a little deeper about your point about experiences and how that's forcing outlets, retail malls to change. I live over that street corner in Hong Kong where every single mainland tourist now goes, like in K-Town, to take a photo in front of the harbor. Many Xiao Hongshu photos taken there. But there is this broader conversation about Hong Kong as a tourist destination, as a retail hub, in that what people want, what tourists want is changing. Again, they want experiences, not shopping, not food. You've talked about this specifically involving Hang Lung, but more broadly, what needs to change about Hong Kong and how it thinks about its attractiveness and build up these experiences?
I like that question. And it's happening right now. What needs to happen is happening. That's the good news. I don't know if it's happening fast enough, but one of them, which is super relevant to me, is that rents need to fall. Rents since COVID have fallen, in some cases like 70%. In not in all cases, but when you have lower rents, you have higher affordability from the business owners, restaurants, retail, and when they have higher affordability, they have profitability, which means they're willing to continue to open it or expand, and they can hire more people to offer better service. They can fit out the shops with more interesting decor and design, and they can buy more different products, like better products, and still maintain a very reasonable margin. So one of the big things which is happening now is actually rental affordability. I know it's not quite there yet for residential rentals, and hopefully it's moved a little bit. I know residential prices have come down. If you're buying, it's a great time to buy, and so that's actually one thing. It's sort of the knock-on effects of what's going to spur creativity, what's going to spur innovation in the areas that matter. Asia Society, like, we need to get the good word out. I mean, we're doing awesome programming here. We had a Caravaggio up here. We have so many amazing programs, but people who come to Hong Kong, do they know about this? Does the wider community know about this? I mean, Hong Kong people, a lot of people don't even know about this. So I feel like in a way we're just not selling ourselves well enough, and I think that that marketing skill that you can pick up in an MBA is so important, and being able to look at things through that lens.
But I want to kind of touch upon that. I mean, everybody knows it's not just the tourists, but it's also locals now are going across to
you, Alice.
Well, I last week was the first time. It was a last minute, and it was easy enough, and it was I'm going to do it again, because for $800 I had a 5 hours wonderful 800 RMB. I had a wonderful experience, and so that goes back to the question of the landlords here, Hong Kong people themselves, and it was not just a cross border. I was with some friends for a birthday weekend in Japan. I mean, come on, the exchange rate the way it is. I also go to see my relatives in Taiwan. I mean, so Hong Kong does have to reinvent itself, and I think everybody's always complaining about the real estate, and so can you kind of talk about it can't all be about shopping, which is great.
Absolutely not. I mean, so I'll just say two quick things. I talk about this with my friends all the time. We were all here over 2019, 2020. We were all here over COVID. We experienced sort of the worst of not just Hong Kong, but of humanity in a way. And so, naturally it takes some time for everybody to recover and to kind of get back into, into a good mindset. But, what I talk about with my friends is, what else can we do to help Hong Kong really recover internally, but also externally? But those two things feed themselves. I think the government is an easy punching bag. But that being said, I think that this administration are really aware of the issues and trying to do it. I think the problem is actually more at the bureaucratic sort of mid-management level rather than at the top. And so maybe they don't get enough blame as they should. But, there's problems, but also a lot of people recognize this. And so the question really is, as sort of civic leaders, as business leaders, what else can we do? I talked to my team about what type of tenants we're bringing in from overseas. Supreme just opened in Shanghai. Those of you who are into streetwear or fashion, why aren't they open in Hong Kong, like properly? In a location that they really think is impactful. So things like that. We really do need to make sure that we think out of the box.
Okay, Donna. And and William, let's go with Donna first.
Donna, raise your hand.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, really appreciated sharing, and a lot of things you said really resonated with me. You mentioned about the the company that you lead has sustainability as part of your values, and in corporates, sometimes linking that and integrating that concept into value creation can be quite challenging. So can you share, perhaps given the history of the company always has sustainability at the heart of the values, where you found having that as value led to value creation beyond compliance exercise?
You'd be shocked. Right now, because of inefficiencies in the market, what I pay for green electricity, so half of my malls are powered 100% by green electricity, which means solar, hydro, I think we have geothermal, and there's a mix depending on what's available in the grid. But half of them, 100% powered by green electricity. And actually, I got a discount from the traditional grid price because people don't know how to navigate the markets, because they're disparate markets, they're separate. And we're just sort of one of the few people who put in the time and effort to understand how it is that we would actually buy green energy. And so we immediately see returns. And that sort of is kind of like my little secret, because I don't want to go ahead and tell everybody that I'm actually paying less, because then the markets will move. And inevitably they will move, and the hope really is that by the time they do move, things like solar will be as cheap as, or on par as is the price of coal or whatever else it is that they're burning. So actually, it's so funny that if you look into the markets and you get into the weeds, you find that, hey, in many cases there's immediate value.
Okay. Hello. Thank you so much, Adriel, for your wonderful sharing. As an alumni of Hang Lung, I'm really excited and pleased to see you sitting on the chairman and leading the company to the next stage. So actually, I remember in 2013, you set up the EST committee in Hang Lung, which is Experience Service Technology. Before everybody talk about the pop tech and service-oriented, customer-centric sort of approach. And now I see Hang Lung is leading on the ESG. Apart from the ESG, I'm just very curious, like after Hangzhou, what's your next sort of big land acquisitions on your plan? And following the the current sort of real estate marketing in China, will Hang Lung turn around to look at the overseas market? I.e., SWI is investing in Southeast Asia, will Hang Lung venture into that market instead of the mainland? Thank you.
Yeah. So each company has its own views. We, like I said, used to do a lot of greenfield investments, brand new mall in a brand new city, i.e. a city where we don't already have operations, and we'd tear down whatever old buildings were there and build it from the ground up. That was our model, and then we'd lease that and take in the revenue. But I think what we have to start looking at these days, now that interest rates have gone up, now that our gearing level has gone up. So we went from when William was working with us, we were net cash. Now we're at 30% debt, 30% leverage, and so the things have changed substantially. Obviously, the markets outside are not as optimistic. There's a big China discount in the capital markets, and so the ability to fundraise or raise equity or whatever it might be has all changed. So it really forces you to look back at what your core competencies are, what you're doing that's going to drive the most value. And for us, one easy thing, one of the first things you look at is how do you sweat your assets? So your existing assets, how do you make that work harder for you? Because if you're already making $100, it's easier to grow that to $110 than it is to go from $0 to $10, right? So how do you sweat your assets? But also, what that also implies is how do you deepen your exposure to the markets where you already have exposure, because the markets already, you already have a team there, you already have the connections in government, with contractors, with the brands, and so it's sort of like deepening rather than broadening, so going more vertical rather than horizontal growth, and I think that's one thing that we will have to look at.
Well, I'm not going to take more any questions because we have half an hour or more to spend with Adriel on the drinks. It's over at LQW, so you can ask all the questions you want. So we're going to come to a close. It's a bit, a little bit after 7. And so on that note, thank you, Adriel, very much. This is the first of many programs. We'll have you back and maybe on a panel to talk, because sustainability, ESG, has been one of the hottest topic. In fact, earlier in the week, we had Christine Lowe here talking about waste management in Hong Kong. And that's a topic that Asia Society Hong Kong will be keeping an eye out. And so we invite you to come back for future programs. And again, you're one of the first. I know John Heffernan, whom handles sustainability for Hang Lung, is also a great friend and had done many programs for us. So please come back in the future. And before we leave, we have 2 plugs. One of them is the June 4th, we will have a public program, free public program, thanks to Hang Lung Math Award. That is June 4th. And then follow by a dinner with Ronnie and others, the speakers for the Hang Lung Math Award. Professor Helen Meng, Dr. Shum. So please, those of you who are interested, even if you're not a PC member, we will be happy to invite you to join us for this dinner on June 4th. And then another plug. Those of you who are free on Monday, June 3rd, we have a lunch program with Stephen Roach. And those of you who are upset with Steve, what he wrote for Financial Times in February, Is Hong Kong Over? You can come and debate that topic for yourself with Steve on Monday. We still have some seats left for the Monday, June 3rd program. So please, and thank you so much all for your support. And let's have a drink and at the LQW room, the Equal Way room. Thank you.
Thanks, Alice. Thanks, Asia Society.